Hi, it's Dave. I want to talk about some of the techniques that I used in making the polyrhythmic music. Long title. It was way too long a title. But there's some interesting things, techniques, sort of production and music techniques that I've developed over all the years been doing this. And it kind of occurred to me that these are some of them are a bit unusual, and I've just kind of got used to them over all the years that I've been doing this. So one of the things is there's the kick drum sound. On the entire album is one sample, just one sample that's used from a Roland 606. On the screen here, I have got this saved in battery. So let me just open this up here, because there's a few things that I do to this just as standard, and it didn't even occur to me that this might be a bit unusual to other people. So in battery here, I just go to the 606 kit. This kick here, yeah, you can hear that. So that is the only kick sound that I used on the entire album, but I didn't use it like this. First thing I did was I filtered it, and I find that digital synths and things that are just generally made digitally are quite sharp sounding, quite harsh sounding, and most of the things that I like came out on vinyl or even cassettes, and they had a kind of warm analog sound. So I like to take a lot of treble off of things, but with the kick drum, my personal preference is to take it all the way down to about here. This is now very muffled. Sounds like it's in a box, but I like that. And the other thing that I do is if I pull up the isotope tape saturation, there's usually something, one of these ones, the warm-up preset. Let me just go back to battery here. Where is it? If I pull this up a bit, it will start to break up. Not quite there. Oh, probably do low emphasis as well. I'll put this right up to the top. Okay, so that's distorting now, so I'm going to pull it back a bit. It's just starting to go. That sounds just right for me. It's just getting a little bit of character to it. And then the other thing that I do, this is very much inspired by the Aphex Twin-selected Ambient Works album, is that the kick drum is often quite echoey, got quite a bit of reverb on it. And so what someone might ordinarily do to recreate that sound is just to add some reverb on here. But I don't. I found a way that sounds more interesting to me. So I create a new track, and I put usually Realm, I don't know how you say it, Room, from Native Instruments on there. So this is a new track. I drag that across there and put the mix up to 100%. So the reverb on this track now sounds echoey. So we've got the dry signal on this track, we've got the wet signal on this track. But while that sounds nice, there is something else I can do which I think sounds even more interesting, which is I use the Reaper stock compressor. Oops, I've deselected it. Where are we? And I side chain the original to this. Let's see, I should be able to see over here now. So that's the kick drum. So people who don't know, what's happening here is I've got the reverb, which makes the echoey sound. This sidechain compression ducks the volume of the reverb down when the kick drum plays. So now you'll hear it kind of fades in afterwards. The kick sounds dry, but then the reverb fades in. It's a subtle effect. If I turn it off, you'll hear the reverb is just there. If I turn it back on again, the reverb blooms afterwards. So I can just put in, it's C2, this one. I've been looking at a lot of C2s while making this album. Another thing I do actually here is I use different velocities on the kick drum quite a lot. So if I loop this, if I now see, this already has a load of character to me. If I take off the sidechain compression, it's just a bit more flat to me. This just has a bit more dynamics to it and a bit more interest to my ears. I'm wondering if I could actually go up a little bit here. Oh, no, that's too much. That's too much. Oh, it's kind of interesting though, isn't it? Right. One of the things that I do on the amp quite a lot is flavor the sounds with things like saturation. So I'll use quite simple sounds. One of the things that I sometimes don't like with sort of modern electronic music is using very complex sounds, and I find that I really like the sounds of very simple sounds flavored with distortion or saturation and EQ. I find those really pleasing to the ear. So that's what I would be doing here, listening to this. See, even though I've totally overdone that, I still find that a nice sound. There's something kind of living to this, and actually even I could even, if I felt like it, add that, an LFO to that, slow it right down. This would go up and down. Hold on, that's going too low. Let me try that again. Do that. And it's not working out, that one. Oh, there we go. So now there's a pattern going on here where that bias is changing and the amount of distortion is changing, and that adds just a little bit of variation to the sound over time. And so even though that's a sample being played and it's a loop of a sample being played, and that sample is exactly the same every time, if you add automation in like this, it kind of creates a variation in it and a kind of, to me, a living feel, an organic feel to it. That's odd. That's behaving a little bit differently to how I normally would, but that's what happens when you record. Also, you can change the amount of ducking on the reverb here. If I do that, the reverb will come back. So that's a full strength reverb. You hear how that sounds a bit flat in comparison. And as I add it, you can go nuts with it. So that's a full-on ducking effect there. But about halfway, just creates an interesting feel. It's kind of an ear candy thing. It just tickles your ears a bit. More complex sound, and more depth, and more layers to it. Now, one thing I also do here is if I create another battery track and go back to that 606 kit, the only hi-hats I use on the whole album are this one and that one, although they sound the same. It's basically this one. And what I would do is I would take the bass drum pattern, there we go, it's there, drag it up to the hi-hat sound, probably put this on to 16th notes, and then I would probably add or subtract a 16th note to the length of the loop. And then if I copy these out, you see that where the little indentation is at the top here is where the loop starts. It starts to go out of sync. Now, then I duplicate that track, pan one to the left, pan one to the right. So this is two hi-hat tracks. And then I will change one of these loop back, maybe to taking away a 16th note. These will all go out of sync with each other now, and you'll start to have the basis of the drums in the polyrhythmic music tracks. things get a bit more complicated, because what I'll do is put those hi-hat tracks into a little group there, and maybe use the compressor again and sidechain the hi-hats as well. So I have to go to auxiliary inputs there, drag this over, and when we start playing it, again, it will cut the hi-hats out when the bass drum comes in just a little bit, and it just adds texture to it again. Now, what can happen here is if I put this up to maybe a bar of 5/4 and I add a little bit of flavor to the kick drum loop, things start to spiral out of control. I would also usually turn down the hi-hats a lot, so it's like that, so they're not really in your face, they feel quite mellow. So those loops are all working out of sync with each other, they're all going out of phase with each other, but also the bass drum is changing the volume of those hi-hats when it comes in. So you end up with quite a complex pattern, not just in the music where the beats are actually playing, but also in how the tracks are interacting with each other. And I find that creates, or maybe contributes to the kind of mentally stimulating feel of these tracks, which is what they do for me. And I've also had a lot of comments from people saying that they have that same kind of effect on them, that it's a track where it might not feel like a lot is happening, but there's something stimulating and relaxing at the same time about it. I think it comes from this complexity, but also making it simple and mellow sounding and pleasing to the ear, but with a lot of little interesting details, and it kind of creates a hypnotic but stimulating effect. I hope this has been interesting to you. By the way, the stuff that I'm doing here with the tracks all interacting, I can make another video about it, but I will do that with many synths as well. Maybe 10, 12 layers of different repeating patterns like this going on all at once, and that probably contributes to that kind of complex, stimulating feel as well. Hope this has been interesting, and catch you on the next one. Bye bye.